Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how best to enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin. I'm located in, well, it was rainy North Hollywood, California most of this week, but today it is back to beautiful, sunny North Hollywood, California.
Right? Like we're actually having weather like some people in the States always have.
Yeah, like San Diego washed away this week. I don't know where you're staying. I don't know
Well, that
what
was a
like a
couple of
hotel
weeks
you're in.
ago, but yeah, we got some more rain, which we've had more rain in the past month than we've had like all of last year, I feel like. My name is Stephanie Orlina, and I am a transformational life coach, and I'm in San Diego, California, and it's a gorgeous day, nice and chilly and beautiful.
It is really great when we have the rain in SoCal. When you get past it, it's just like, at least in Los Angeles, the air smells a lot better. Like it's a lot fresher outside. So yeah. We want to thank you so much for listening or watching or both, whatever you're doing to join us today. We do want to let you know that we often mention the names Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks on this podcast. If you're not familiar with those names, that's okay, but we just want to let you know what they are. Esther is a speaker and an author who channels Abraham. Abraham is described as a group of entities from beyond our physical world who share their wisdom by speaking through Esther at workshops and speaking opportunities around the world. You can search the names Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks on your favorite web browser or on YouTube if you're watching us there. Or you can also check out their website, abraham-hicks.com. Each week we start our discussion from a different jumping off point. And this week, the jumping off point is going to end the entire podcast. This is the last episode ever because this week I got proof that the law of attraction is a myth, the art of allowing doesn't work, and I'm just going to explain that and just show the proof, and then that'll be a wrap. 7 seasons.
And you're
Thank you,
correct,
everyone.
because that's what you believe. So boom, it's done.
Oh crap. I'm thinking, my experience in people who are born and raised in Southern California, my experience is that often they don't it's not that they don't understand sarcasm, it's that they don't catch it as easily as we do on the East Coast. And so I'm worried now that I've alienated all the all our Southern California native listeners who think that this is actually the last. It's not the last episode. I was being facetious. However, so we've been talking the last few weeks here and there about scripting, which is an idea that I got from this book, Scripting the Life You Want by Royce Kristen, in which you use writing in the morning, at night, and once a week with a special exercise to sort of help your process with the art of allowing. And it's been fascinating getting back into this. And again, shout out to Sarah who requested the original episode on scripting because I got back into it at that point, and it's been very I've learned a lot doing this and really being like in process actively with the art of allowing on a daily basis. However, it's not however, but I think this is a really good thing to talk about because and I'm just looking up at in my scripting journal here. So, um, starting a while back, I wrote on pretty much every day. I want season 7, episode 12 of the Co Creation Station podcast to have 50 views or more on YouTube by January 31st, 2024. And so I didn't look at the view count for episode 12 until February 1st, the day after what I had journaled. And on February 1st, and I checked again this morning. We're recording this on February 11th, and it's still the same. The counter is still the same, and it is holding steady at a lofty 9 views. So the reason I want to talk about it is because I think a lot of people who aren't familiar with the law of attraction or just have heard a little bit about it and kind of dismissed it would be like, well, there you go. That's why I don't do it because it obviously doesn't work. Um, and your response to that, Stephanie, is what?
You're right. If you think it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Okay,
Yes and
right.
no. Like that's true, but I guess it's true for them, but it's not truth.
So can you explain why I wrote that for several days and then the result didn't happen the way that I wrote it?
Possibly because you had more doubt than belief. There was more resistance than allowance.
You're blaming me instead of the universe that's created everything. You're just looking at my long track record of doubt, which is extensive. I'll give you that.
No, I'm just I'm just naming it as truth because honestly, if there's anything that I want and I don't have it, I've been wanting it for a while and I don't have
Hmm.
it, it's only for one reason. I can name all kinds of reasons, but it comes
Hmm.
down to I have more resistance than belief,
Hmm.
period.
Hmm.
And if I can soften that resistance, it's going to show up.
Okay.
And just because it hasn't shown up yet doesn't mean it's not going to show up.
Well, a big thing about this for me is how time works with the law of attraction and art of allowing. And we've talked a little bit about time, but I don't think we talk about it enough, frankly, because I think time and putting time deadlines on things is one way in which people activate their resistance, and it's
It
possible that
totally does
that
for
I did it with
me,
this. Yeah,
especially if
but
I have more doubt than belief.
but
If I
the
have
thing
more
I
doubt than belief, I need to not put a time
yeah,
limit on it.
but the thing I realized, because you and I had talked about, we had a discussion outside the podcast, because I had gotten back into the scripting, and I was like, oh hey, like I don't put anything in about the podcast except um, in my daily thing on Sundays when we record. I do usually write like I want to have lots and lots of fun and laugh a lot creating two awesome episodes of the podcast with Stephanie. I'll put something like that. Um, but what I realized is when I we had the outside conversation, I was like, do you want? Because I've kind of let go to an extent of wanting the podcast to have so many listens on Spotify and so many listens on YouTube. It's not that this isn't important to me. I love this podcast and it's very important to me. It's one of the best things I'm doing in my life and has been since we started. But it's also like I think I just sort of realized like I was so attached in the beginning to like, oh, how many views did we get? How many Spotify listens did we get or whatever. That just was activating resistance for me around something that was otherwise just really fun and enjoyable and creating a lot of laughter and joy for me. So I just kind of got out of the business of even looking at those numbers. But I did realize in that outside conversation that you and I had about, oh, but if we want to have more views and more listens, we can put that in our like we can get
It's
specific
already in our
about that.
vortex, but yeah, you could do it in scripting, is basically what
Well,
you were saying.
it's only in our vortex if we truly want it, right? Like if it
Oh, it's
wasn't
in
something,
there.
well, but I'm trying to clarify for people that like this is their first episode, like
All
if you and I,
positive requests are in our vortex.
right. So, but what I'm saying is like you and or me being a firefighter, for example, is not in our vortexes because we don't have any true desire to be
No,
a
I
firefighter.
like to be in the forest, but not as a firefighter.
Right. Right. And certainly not in the forest while it's on fire.
Exactly.
But you and I both do want the podcast to reach as many people as possible, I guess is the best way I would say it.
Yeah, when you
Um,
showed me your vision board that you recently made for this
yeah.
year, and I saw the co-creation station on there and what you had put on there, I liked it. I was
Yeah.
like,
So
yes.
for people who can't see my vision board, it's I just screenshotted a couple of some other channel. I don't remember what it was, and it just says it's like what you see on YouTube. It'll just say like 21.3K subscribers, whatever. There's a couple of things I want to get to. So one of them is that I realized when I was doing my daily scripting, because you and I had that outside conversation, and I asked you like, do you want to get a lot more views and listens? And you were like, hell yeah. Um, and we talked about, okay, how many would we like, because you can say to the universe, or you could have a however you want to think about it, say to the universe, or you can have hold a vibration of like we would like more viewers, right? But that is pretty vague, and it doesn't give the universe a lot of clarity on like, well, how big do you want it to get, and how extensive do you want your reach to be? So when I was scripting, I was like, well, knowing that I was scripting, when we had that outside conversation, I was like, well, how many views? Do you want a particular? Well, first of all, I said, do you want to track the Spotify numbers or the YouTube numbers for this? And you said YouTube. It's easier to see. And I said, okay, how many views do we want to have on YouTube? And we talked about how we were going to start with like the cup of what we call the cup of coffee method. Like we weren't going to
Yeah.
expect a video to just suddenly have like 1 million views on YouTube,
Mm.
because we were concerned that, and I think legitimately so, that our resistance,
Right.
because we're used to much smaller numbers than that
Right.
so far, that would actually activate our resistance
Absolutely.
instead of
Sure.
go with the flow and allow in more. So we settled on 50 views. And so the thing that, when I was trying to work with that on my daily scripting, the thing that I got tangled up with a little bit is like, okay, but if I need to tell the universe, like, for clarity, like, what are we really asking for? It's like, okay, well, because we have like thousands of views if you total all 7 seasons,
Right.
all 22 episodes of all 7 seasons, like we have
Right.
thousands.
Yeah.
We have episodes that have over, I think probably the first
Over
episode have over
100.
200.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Right.
so I was thinking, like, if I'm writing my scripting, like, I want one of our episodes to have 50 views. It's like, well, we already did that. So I was thinking, oh, so it should be a recent episode. But then it's like, well, maybe it'll get 50 views in the year 2057. And that's not really what I'm looking for either. That doesn't match what I'm actually wanting. So I was like, okay, so that kind of forces me to a degree to put a deadline on it. And so that's why I chose January 31st, because at that point, that was like, it gave that episode like 4 weeks or something like that.
Mhm.
And I thought I did a great job of letting go of it. I didn't really think about it much except for my morning scripting. And in my
Mhm.
morning scripting and evening scripting, I was really like, I felt like I was in a place of trust. I wasn't like, oh, I hope, what if we don't
Yeah.
get this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I was I'm usually in a good zone. So frankly, I was surprised in one way when I went on February 1st and I saw that there were only 9 views. But then on the other hand, I was like, I looked at the numbers for that episode and a few episodes around it,
Mhm.
and they're all hovering between 5 and 15 views, and that's kind of
Mhm.
what we've been averaging for quite a while.
Right.
And I was like, is it a surprise though? Because that's kind of, there was a part of me that was like waiting to be like, ready to be surprised and like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, it happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's part of me that was like, I feel like there's a pretty strong part of me that was expecting 9, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. But so I do think you're right in the sense that when I put the deadline on it, this wasn't my intention. But I think when I put the deadline on it, my brain started grinding on resistance thoughts, which
Well,
was
it's that whole
generating.
logic. It's a
Yeah,
whole logical mind thinking.
yeah. Because the one thing is, what it really activated was this question of like, well, and then we've talked about this a million times. How?
I know.
How are we going to go from
That
5 to
mother
15
effing
to
how.
50?
That three-letter
Which,
word. Oh,
yeah,
that's the new three-letter word.
yeah,
How?
yeah,
None of my effing business how.
yeah. And I didn't spend any. That's the interesting thing about the hows, is that, or sort of obsessing about like, this mental need we have to control the understanding of the steps that will have to occur. And I think people confuse this with goal setting and planning of like, well, how are you going to get to a goal unless you see all the stuff? It's like, that's kind of a different thing. But I definitely do feel like when I put that date on there, the question that got activated and that my mind grinded on is, how are you going to go from 5 to 15 to 50 when you're not doing anything different?
And
Meaning,
that's the
it's up
that's
to
the
our
resistance.
efforting.
That's the
We've got to
resistance.
effort more.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It was good that you saw that. I think this is a really great conversation because this happens for a lot of us
yeah,
with pretty much anything and everything in our lives.
yeah,
And it is that I think for me, I've been taught, and most of the people around me have been taught that it takes effort, it takes effort. I have to make it happen. I have to know how.
Yeah.
And if we look at nature and the universe, our human bodies, so many things, I don't know how electricity works, but it does. I don't know how the internet works, but it does. And we don't even, I don't even question those things. I just take it for granted. We all do, mostly.
Yeah.
Yet for some reason, and I think it's just been, handed down to us from generation to generation, is that we question these types of things. Well, how are
Yeah.
you going to do that, Stephanie?
Yeah.
Collin, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
And for me, it's been a relearning, a new neural pathway of like letting go,
Yeah.
of trusting, of looking at the past and being like, there were so many things that I wanted that I didn't know how they would happen or even if they would. Yet looking back, so many of them happened. I was just thinking recently about, I'm gonna cry, um, how when Nibbles would stay with me,
Nibbles is your dog.
thank you, when he would stay with me because he was my grand dog first, my granddaughter's dog, he would stay with me for a week or two at a time, and then he'd go home. And I remember there would be times when I'd think, oh, is he getting the care that he needs? Is he getting walked regularly? Is he, all these little things. And I really wanted him to be, I guess, necessarily spoiled, but well taken care of, really. Because I knew I did that for him while he was with me and that he was getting that. Um, and so then in those moments, and I even think he energetically put those things in his vortex too. And so I was looking back, I'm like, Steph, back then you put in your vortex you wanted him, even though you knew you didn't want a dog. I didn't want the full-time responsibility of one. I loved having him part-time. But now that he's with me full-time and he does get, I do it perfectly imperfect, but he does get really good care. I just have to laugh because I'm like, even in your resistance of I can't have a dog, I don't want a dog. Um, he obviously wanted it enough that he's here. He's a great allower. Um, and obviously I did too. Like you said to me once, your spirit knew.
Mm.
And so we don't have to know how. I think that's the whole relearning here, and I keep some things that I really want, I keep very close to my vest.
Mm-hmm.
And I only share them with people who I feel I know are not going to say, but how, Stephanie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or that we're both in that energy space of being in possibility.
Yeah.
And I was with a friend yesterday and he said to me, it was really great. He said a couple of things to me that I really loved. And one of them was, okay, you want that? Okay. And then it was like, well, that's kind of small thinking, or, he was referring to like spirit being like, okay, you want that? Okay. What else? And even thinking, well, even that's kind of small thinking.
Well, but the size thing is the next thing I want to talk about. So we talked about the time aspect of it. Um,
Even that's thinking small. That's what he said.
but size also comes into it, right? We've talked about this. You've mentioned many times. Abraham has mentioned this. That the universe doesn't really care if you're asking for 3 cents or $3 million. Like the universe can create anything at any time for anyone. It's really a matter of like what our there's I keep hearing this metaphor like, are you going to go to the ocean with a thimble or a dump truck? Like
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
you can go with either one and
Yeah.
you'll get different amounts of seawater, but it's not about the ocean and how can the ocean provide for you. It's like, what are you going to the ocean with to get,
Yeah.
but I actually wonder, I think it's possible that when we said 50 views, for me that was too big a number
Mhm.
because it triggered that whole thing. Like, I think in terms of the cup of coffee method, like let's try to manifest something really small and easy that we can
Right.
imagine happening.
Yeah.
Um, Going from 5 to 15 to 50 was too. It was way bigger than a cup of coffee to be. So
Yeah.
I think it's like, oh, what if we had just said like you know, because we do range from 5 to 15, and say, well, what if I'd said, okay, the 5 is the lowest. Like this week we're gonna get 7, you know, on this episode, and like that. If you'd asked me, Collin, do you believe that you could get 7? I'd be like, oh yeah, totally. We've done it before,
Yeah.
you know. And then work towards, you know, the next week is like, what do you believe you get 10 this week? I'm like, oh yeah, totally. We haven't done that as often, but we've done it before, you know, and then work our way up that way. But it can also be the reverse. I like what you brought up too. It's like, but sometimes if you know, if we had said, oh well, let's just try to make sure we get 4, you know, because there's a couple on there with like 1 or 2, so let's make sure we get 4. That's probably thinking too small, and the universe can
Absolutely.
do that too, you know. It's all right, here's 4, but that's me putting a ceiling on it rather than trying to be open about it.
And I think for me, what I have found is with those things that I have a ton of resistance with,
Mm-hmm.
to let them go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think about something else.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, we could let this go. And 3 months from now, you'd be like, Steph, I checked, and guess what? We have 50. Do you know what I mean? It's a matter of
Well, the reality. So, but here's the final thing: we already have 50. That's the other thing I think is like it's
about this specific episode.
yeah. So why did we want a certain number of views on one episode?
Because you were playing with the scripting. You were like, okay,
Yeah.
if we want more views, which
So
episode?
that's part of my question is like, so was that a mistake? Like limiting it to one
No,
episode?
because we wouldn't be having this conversation. So it's not a mistake.
Okay. 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 But like, was that a near guarantee that it wouldn't happen because we're not
No,
looking at
it
the
could have totally have happened.
okay.
It totally could have happened.
Okay.
Absolutely. Anything's possible.
But you didn't script it. Like when I talked to you about it, you were like, I didn't really want to pick a particular episode, and I was kind of thinking more episode 11, the
To
one
be
before
completely honest here,
that.
I really liked the episode before that one.
Episode
And
11,
that would
which
have
has
been
which
that would
got
have been
15, 1-5. So you're attracting better than me. Okay, it's not a competition, but you're totally winning. Um, but your episode didn't get 50 either,
no.
and you did say 50. But
I
your thing
agreed to
is
50.
you didn't put the deadline on it.
I am someone in the past I've learned it's not in my highest good to put deadlines. I have immediate resistance when I think of like, oh, and I'm gonna have this by Tuesday. Because they'll tell you, even where I have a lot of allowing and belief, which is, running things on the radio,
Mhm.
um, even sometimes it was challenging for me to be like, I remember specifically there were one time I was really into country music and I hadn't seen Carrie Underwood yet. And it was a Friday. I was somewhere in the car, we're listening to the radio, and they're like, "Oh yeah, and on Monday we're gonna start giving away Carrie Underwood tickets, at certain times." And I was like, "Oh, I'd love to see her. I haven't seen her yet." And they're like, "Okay, I'm gonna try on Monday." And but if I had put a deadline on it, like I'm going to win and I'm gonna go, blah, 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 it probably would not have happened that way, and I would have been disappointed.
But if you really want something, I guess I totally get that and I agree with it. But if you really want something, how do you prevent it taking like 20 years? You know what I mean?
Well,
Because you have a vibration.
it's not going to
Well,
take 20 years for episode 12 season 7 to get 50 views.
okay, but what I'm trying to say is you can have a vibration, or I can have a vibration, where I believe that something will happen, but I believe that it will take a really long time, which again is me. That's not the universe,
Right. It's your
saying,
belief.
oh, well, it's going to take a long time. That's me putting a time limit,
Hmm.
in
With my with
reverse,
my
or a delay, time delay
yeah.
on it. So I guess that's why I was picking a date, because I feel like in my mind, I'm like, well, it could get 50 views 20 years from now. That's not what I'm asking
Well,
for.
what if you would have said this year?
Yeah, I think that would have had a much better shot.
Yeah.
I was thinking, yeah, I think that's the right idea. But to me, that's similar to the cup of coffee. I think there was two issues for me. One is that for me, that goal was too high
Hmm.
and it was too soon.
Hmm.
So like,
Yeah.
I think it would have been better
So if
if,
you would have went further out
yep, and a lower
and
number.
a little lower number,
Yeah,
so it made it a little more believable, right? That's
yeah,
softening the resistance, what
yeah,
you just did.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I had a goal, it was around this time last year. I had a big a business goal. I really thought it was going to happen, and I gave myself till the end of the year. And midway, I saw this may not happen. And then by the end of the year, it didn't happen. But I remember thinking, yeah, okay, this goal is going to take me longer than I thought.
Yeah.
And now we're in February. Now I'm like, oh, I like even last month, I'm like, oh, I know I'm going to reach that goal this year. Like I just feel it within me. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier about those intuitive hits
Hmm.
that when we doubt them, like I had doubted an intuitive hit I had gotten this week because of the appearance bullshit, as Kelly likes to refer to. And so what? So what if I didn't meet my goal last year by the end of last year? And what if I meet it this year? That's freaking awesome because I still met it. Like I'm still going to get to experience. I still get it. So
Hmm.
who cares what time it takes? Like honestly, Collin, when you and I meet our peep and we're with that person, we're not going to give a flying F how long it took us. We're just going to be so happy we're together. And from that point, we're going to want other things.
I totally get that. I think what I've struggled with in the past, and I know other people struggle with, is the difference between trusting in that, like letting go of the deadline,
It's practice.
understanding that it's going to come at a great time, versus having a vibration where you kind of don't believe it will show up, so you keep delaying it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think it's all progress. I like to say
Yeah.
perfectly imperfect. It's called the game of life.
Mhm.
We're learning as we go.
Yeah.
And we don't do it perfectly. We never will. I think
The other thing I
learning
was,
by experience is more powerful than reading it in a book
mhm.
or someone sharing it with us.
The other thing, the final thing about that specific thing that I asked for is that, and I'm not sure it probably we did it fine, but YouTube actually, like a lot of things in life, is more complicated than how many views on one particular episode by one particular date, because we also have a subscriber number that kind of represents something more overall for the channel rather than any one particular episode, like how many people. Because the episode, if we're going to talk about a practical level, the universe is actually controlling how many people watch the episode. But on a practical level, the
And we
individual,
play a part with that by our vibration, with
right?
what we
Oh,
expect
100%.
and what we believe.
100%. But on the practical side, what is happening is the YouTube algorithm is sending it to people that are subscribed or watch it all the time, and then it's sending it to, as I understand it, a handful of other people to see if they're interested in it for the first time. And depending on how many people of those people watch a certain degree of it, it might send it to more strangers that haven't seen us yet, or it might not. And so I feel like, man, even that thing that I wrote, I would like season 7, episode 12 to have 50 views by January 31st. I'm like, I'm not sure that's an accurate representation of what I really want, because what I really want is for the channel to grow and for more people to find out about us. And I don't necessarily need, like, every person who finds out about us to watch every single episode on YouTube from start to finish. It's more like I want the overall
Although that
reach.
would be cool.
That that would be cool. But you know what I mean? Like, it's more
Yeah.
like if you told me, like, from right
And I
now.
just have to say, I'm
Yeah.
always impressed when someone new starts subscribing
Yeah.
or they tell because they're like, oh, I started listening from where we're at right now. And
Yeah.
then they're like, oh, and I went back and started listening from the beginning. And I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you. That's pretty I like that to hear that.
That's what I wondered. It's like, because unfortunately, my brain knows stuff about the algorithm. It knows stuff about YouTube sends it to our subscribers, so
And then I would
um,
say,
that gets
how's
me into
that
the
working for
how.
you, Collin?
Yeah, right. So what I was wondering, like, if I shouldn't even, if it would be easier, more in the flow,
Hmm.
to focus on, like, I would like to get one new subscriber in an amount of time that I can believe,
Which we did recently. And what's that
which we
person's
did.
name?
Teresa, yeah,
Yes. Hi, Teresa.
Teresa
Welcome.
in Connecticut, yeah.
So glad you're here.
Um, yeah, because I do feel like my brain gets into the hows about views
I know. And
way
that,
more. The
well, with,
subscriber thing admittedly seems more mysterious to me because I don't know why people, I mean, I don't know all of the things that would need to happen for a new person to subscribe to us. So it's almost like that's a better. My
you
brain
know
is gonna
what? That
less get into
stuff
the
can
house.
happen. We don't even know how. Like, honestly, we could leave today and someone could start watching episode 12 and then start sharing it with other friends.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, there's 150 views on it. Like, you know what
Well,
I mean?
that's
We
why I
just,
think that. So I've talked this
and
whole
that's so
episode.
the art of allowing in the universe. Like,
Yeah. So I've talked this whole episode about why this was a bad thing for me.
and
In
where are we
terms
at
of
with time? I
triggering.
feel like we've been chatting forever.
No, we got time.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, we got a really late start because of all your computer problems this morning. Uh,
Oh my God, you
facts,
are hilarious.
facts.
Not.
Um, but I mean, we are near the end. I'll try to wrap it up. I've totally lost my train of thought because now I'm thinking
Good.
of computer
Good.
problems I helped you fix this morning.
Because you're
Um,
what is
oh no,
what does
I was
Kelly
saying
like to call you? And I've said
I
it.
do like that about YouTube. I think that's why it's a good thing, or it's helpful for me in my scripting and in my allowing, because YouTube has that aspect where I know that people can get like 10,000 views like randomly, so that actually kind of helps me because I don't know how somebody gets 10,000 views randomly.
Do
Like,
something
that's,
crazy and then
yeah,
someone sends it to someone and it goes viral.
but
And
there's no
that's
way to
not what
control.
that's
Right.
not what our show's about. So
But there's no, my
we're not
brain
that
knows
desperate yet.
my brain knows that there's no way I can figure that out. So I think for me that's a good thing because it's like, oh, there's an
You have a
aspect.
sharp object in your hand. I think you need to put it down while you're having these thoughts.
It's just my letter opener that I play with. But I mean, I think that's why when we talked about it outside the episode, it was a really good thing for that because my brain does believe that people can just blow up on YouTube. Like, I do believe that. So
And you said the operative word right there, believe.
yeah, it's believe. Yeah,
Believe and expect. Like when we can get
yeah,
into those energies, those vibrations,
yeah.
whew, like, yeah, then it's as easy because it is this is what Abraham says. It's as easy to create a button as a castle. It's just a matter of which one are you focused on.
Yeah.
And it's the same application of the same law to two different intentions. So go create buttons and castles and everything in between. We're here
So
to support you with
so
whatever your heart's desire.
in summary, you're sticking to this whole thing about the law of attraction is real and the art of allowing works.
Yes, just like we really never talked about the law of gravity, and yet we all know it exists. Same thing with law of attraction.
This
It's a
is why
law, a
this
universal
is
law.
this is also why I know, and everyone listening to this will already know that this is true because it'll be 2 weeks later because today we're recording this, the Super Bowl is later today in America, and this is why I know that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win because a bunch of the world is putting positive energy towards the Kansas City Chiefs winning, and then the rest of the world is putting negative energy into I hope the Chiefs don't win.
Which is the
So
same
all of
thing,
the
right?
energy,
It's all
there's
focused
a
on,
few, there's a
yeah,
couple million people in the San Francisco Bay Area putting energy behind the 49ers, but the rest of the world is putting all their energy, positive and negative, behind the Kansas City Chiefs, so they're definitely going to
yeah, yeah,
win.
yep,
So,
exactly.
all right. Well, this has been a great discussion. Thank you, Stephanie, for your experience and wisdom on this. It was helpful for me. I hope you got something out of it today for listening or watching. Um, we do want to just let you know that at this point in February of 2024, we are posting a brand new episode for you every single Monday morning. So if you want to subscribe and put your alert on, we really appreciate that. All our social media links and our email address and our Patreon link, which is a new way you can financially support us if you want are all in the doodly doo in the description of the YouTube video down below. We wish you a happy and abundant week, and we look forward to you joining us again on the next episode of Co-Creation Station. Bye, everybody.